It's Patrick Hutzel from Intensive Care at Home, where we provide tailor-made solutions for long-term ventilated adults and children with tracheostomies by improving their quality of life, and where we also provide tailor-made solutions to hospitals and intensive care units to save money and resources whilst providing quality care. In last week's blog, I shared why long-term ventilated adults and children with tracheostomies in the community need intensive care nurses and why it's best practice. You can check out last week's blog by clicking on the link below this video. In this week's blog, I want to share the following article: Palliative care hospitalisations rising for Australians at the end of life. I would consider it to be common knowledge that Australians and people in first world countries in general want to die at home if given the option. In fact, surveys and research reveal that 75% of Australians and 75% of people in first world countries want to die at home, and yet less than 15% actually do die at home. It therefore never ceases to amaze me that mainstream public and mainstream private healthcare is still only delivering a one-size-fits-all health service delivery within the four walls of a hospital. In a recent media release by the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare, new data has revealed that hospitalisations for palliative care are growing faster than all hospitalisations, according to the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare. That's interesting to note, especially when 75% of Australians want to die at home, and yet less than 15% actually die at home. This obviously leaves a big gap between what people want and what people actually get. Again, all mainstream public and mainstream private health services are offering is a one-size-fits-all approach to dying, and they keep ignoring the wishes of the vast majority of Australians who, as a matter of fact, want to die at home. I put a link to the media release from the Australian Institute for Health and Welfare below this video in the written version of this blog, so you can actually see the media release. Now, some of the people dying in hospitals would require intensive care treatment and intensive care therapy, of course. Some of the people dying in intensive care would also get a referral to palliative care at some point. There are approximately 150,000 admissions into intensive care every year in Australia. 90 to 94% of those admissions leave intensive care alive, leaving approximately 6 to 10% of patients dying in intensive care. According to those statistics, about 9 to 15,000 patients die every year in Australian intensive care units. I have actually worked in intensive care for nearly 20 years in 3 different countries, including my extensive experience in intensive home care. I have also worked as a nurse unit manager in intensive care for over 5 years in Australian hospitals, and if I have had $1 for every family in intensive care who had a loved one dying in ICU who said it would be so much nicer if we could take a loved one home to die. Again, intensive care units only offer the one-size-fits-all approach to dying in intensive care without considering what health consumers and their families really want. The good news is that intensive care at home can provide palliative care at home even when patients are on life support, such as mechanical ventilation and tracheostomy. We have already provided such services, and you can read some case studies on the link where it says case studies on the top of the website. Many intensive care units still tell families in intensive care that palliative care at home can't be done for intensive care patients or that it's too difficult. The truth of the matter is that intensive care units need to wake up to new realities, and they need to embrace new and proven holistic care models that are filling a huge gap in the market. Thank you for watching this blog, and if you want to find out how we can help you to get your loved one out of intensive care, including palliative care, or out of long-term acute care, also out of nursing homes, or if you find that you have insufficient support for your loved one at home on a ventilator, or if you have any questions, please contact us with the telephone numbers on the top of the website, or send me an email to patrick@intensivecareathome.com. We are currently also hiring intensive care and pediatric intensive care nurses for clients in Melbourne and in South Gippsland in Victoria. We are also an NDIS, TAC and DVA approved community service provider in Australia. We have also been part of the Royal Melbourne Health Accelerator program. Thank you once again for tuning into this week's blog. This is Patrick Hutzel from Intensive Care at Home, and I'll see you again next week in another update.